Ready. Play.
Women's semi-final that is set,
Fantastic.
which is a little maybe surprising for some, including myself, to know that Paula Badosa is going to be one of the two players. The other one, of course, being Aryna Sabalenka, a little bit less surprising. First of all, Badosa against Goff. I saw this match pretty much from start to finish. Badosa, in the first couple of games, I was like, oh, she's on it today. Now, that doesn't mean that it's going to be the case always, but it was just a feeling. It was the way she was striking the ball, and it was like, okay, Goff is on the back foot here. I think they got to 1-1, but it was like, okay, this is going to be a little bit more of a challenge. I still have a bit of a memory of the way Badosa went out in New York last year, so I wasn't quite sure how she would feel as she got nearer the finish line, but listen, she was easily the better player across the two sets. I spoke to Paula in Madrid last year, or sorry, I should say 2023, and they had a match between Goff and Badosa. And about 36 hours before, I spoke to her in a press conference, and I said, Paula, can you give us any clues on what you might be doing to prepare for this match against Coco? And she wouldn't give me two. She kept her cards close to the chest. So 36 hours later, in the wake of the win that she had, it was a very comfortable win, a really bruising loss, straight sets for Coco, and nothing was going right, particularly on the forehand side. And then, of course, Coco would go on to have a great post-Wimbledon run. But at that time, it was obviously quite concerned. I said to Paula, I said, okay, so I guess the tactic worked. And she threw it back to me. She said, so what was the tactic? I was pretty convinced on what the tactic was. And I said, well, actually, you weren't even attacking the forehand today. You were just giving it, really, and just sitting there and waiting to see what happened.
A couple of days ago, we asked you about the tactic and what it would be against Coco.
Now you know.
I think so, yeah. I think so. I mean, I'm thinking it's just to give her as many forehands as possible.
Yeah.
and I was thinking, as I was watching, I was thinking it's not really attack the forehand, it's give the forehand, right?
Yeah.
Tell us about that.
Yeah, I mean, she's a very good, she plays amazing when she's defending. She's very fast, she has crazy backhand, very good serve, especially first serves. I just try to return her every ball to make her play one more. Sometimes when she feels she doesn't have like 3 points on the serve, she starts to serve a little bit worse. And of course, going more to her forehand.
It wasn't quite the same, and she said, yeah. Fortunately, she said, yeah, that was what it was. But I did have sort of everyone in the press conference turn around and look at me as I had to make sure I got things right. But on clay, of course, and particularly where Coco was at the time, you could just give her that forehand, and she would eventually, break down. I think we've seen some improvements, haven't we, with Coco over the last 6 months, I would say, especially actually on that side, but even maybe you could argue the last 18. But wow, Paula Badosa brought it today. She failed to serve it out for the first time, but she did do it the second time of asking. What are your thoughts on either that match or just Paula being in the Australian Open semi-finals?
I think it's fantastic for a player who was talking about retirement last year or the year before that because of a back injury and wasn't even sure if she was going to be able to get back to this level. But fortunately for us, she did. And I saw that match too. And I thought, there's been a lot of talk about Coco hiring a new coach who's a grip specialist and changing both her second serve grip, and her forehand grip, which has been, coming into this year, it's been very Western, her grip. And I think the changes have not been cemented yet. She still falls back on some of her old patterns. And so therefore she's still going to struggle with the forehand, especially on a surface like this where the balls skid. But I do think she got tight. She got very tight. There was a point in the second set where you could just tell her arm, it was really tense, and she could not find the court with her forehand. And to her credit, Paula noticed she was also tight and nervous. But what did Paula do? She put the ball in the court.
Yeah.
And that is, you cannot understate how tough that can be actually, and how mentally strong and disciplined she was in that scenario, and very much deserved to win the match.
She did, yeah. There's a few sort of moments when Paolo goes up an early break in the second set, having grabbed the first set in the manner that she did. What was obviously a very tight first set, but then that break gets broken back immediately, and I thought, okay, we're going to settle in now, and it's going to be a 3-set or whatever happens. However, Paolo then goes up a double break, but loses one of those breaks. Not necessarily playing that badly, but again, that's a mental challenge that she managed to ultimately overcome. When you mentioned that back injury, by the way, I was fortunate enough, not in a working capacity, but just in the crowd. I was at a match she played against Ostapenko in Rome in 2023, and I saw a lengthy rally go on where she was being pushed side to side, and Ostapenko, I think, ended up winning the point. And at the end of the point, I saw her crouched over in a flower bed, and at the time, I just thought, that's just an example of how grueling that rally was. What I didn't realize is that sort of bending over into the flower bed was obviously her, struggling with her back. Because I think we saw her have a brief effort at trying to play Wimbledon that year. She pulled out the French. She tried to play Wimbledon, which felt like it was a rush back at the time. And then I don't think we really saw her for the rest of 2023. So as you rightfully pointing out, her sort of renaissance with a deep run in New York, and now first, I believe, Grand Slam semi-final in Australia is hats off to her. Aryna Sabalenka, Amy,
Hmm.
thoughts on her Australian Open run, which of course included a 3-set win over Pavlyuchenkova just a few hours ago.
I am shocked. I was looking at some stats. I am shocked that Sabalenka is not among the leaders in aces.
Okay,
She's not even in the top 10.
okay,
In fact, the only player left standing who's in the top 10 in aces is Badosa.
okay.
So she's doing it without aces. Now, she's getting a lot of service winners, my least favorite name for anything, but
Hmm.
serves that aren't coming back.
Hmm.
But she is finding other ways to win. And that is, it's scary, because the Sabalenka, I think, that won her first Australian Open, she just hit people off the court and served people off the court. And
Hmm.
now she's getting better in other aspects of the game, and she's problem solving. So I have picked her to win the tournament. I have her going all the way through, and I still like that, even though she's not serving maybe as well as she can or is capable of.
Yeah, and she had a bit of a wobble today. I was just thinking actually during when you're talking about Coco, I was thinking it's not been a good day for those tweaking their game, tweaking their grips and their serves and motions, because of course Carlos was also,
Hmm.
been spoken about a lot in the last few weeks about some of the tweaks he made to his service motion. But having said that, at least a tweak to their game, if you like, and give themselves a bit more variety. Sabalenka, as you said, last year in particular, just adding, for example, the drop shot, just to give herself a bit more unpredictability. I'm sure Iga Swiatek on the other side of the draw with Wim Fissette in the last few weeks is trying to do some stuff with her game to give herself a better chance on a hard court in particular. But again, that's for later on down the line, because she's still got a quarterfinal to overcome with Emma Navarro. But as for Sabalenka today, it was a real messy match performance. You could see her getting frustrated as well at times, and so weird, because she wins the first set, I think 6-2. She is clearly the better player, maybe still not playing her best, but against an opponent that I did expect her to have few problems with. She goes up 1-love at the beginning of the second, and now you're okay. It's 1-love on serve, but it still felt like, yep, here we go. It's going to be a straight sets win, 2-3, 2-2, or whatever. And then the match suddenly changed. And then before you know it, Pavlyuchenkova, because actually it was quite a quick pace to the match. I mean, they were pretty short sets, actually. Pavlyuchenkova, of course, was up a break in the third set. And it never felt convincing, because there were lots of breaks in the match, as you highlighted. Sabalenka on serve, and at least in terms of aces, but I think in general throughout this tournament, she has looked wobbly on serve. But Sabalenka is now going to be playing Paula Badosa. What are your thoughts on that encounter? I'll bring up the head-to-head. It's 5-2 in favor of Aryna. What are your thoughts on that one?
These two are literally best friends, and it's not fun to play your best friend at all. But they're professionals, that they'll know how to bring it. I think it's not a favorable matchup for Paula, um, especially if Aryna is bringing the forehand. And the good thing about being the type of player that Sabalenka is that you never really have to go to a plan B. You know what your plan is. Either I'm going for my shots and committing, or it's just not working for me today. So there's never much debate in your mind about how to play. And both players are strong off both wings, but they're both power players, both excellent servers. But I think Sabalenka is just marginally better in all those aspects.
Yeah, Badosa won the first two encounters, and now Sabalenka are on a run of 5 in a row. I do remember they won in Stuttgart, was super close before Paula had to retire, and again the injury concerns came back for her in April, I think it was of last year. But she's overcome them, as I said, and now looking pretty good again, and everything else. But 5 in a row for Aryna, and I think when it comes to that dynamic, some people are just better at handling that friendship than others. Some people just can put it out their minds. I know a couple of Portuguese guys that are on the verge of the top 100. In fact, one of them is Jaime Faria, who played Novak Djokovic. He has a head-to-head where he's not won against his friend, and I just feel as though he can't, because he should be winning some of those matches. And again, with Badosa and Sabalenka, I've always thought that some players, some of the absolute top players, even Djokovic as well, you see how well he gets on with so many of these players off the court, and yet on the court he switches, and that gets forgotten about until the last ball drops. I do have Sabalenka, despite some of the wobbles that she's had en route to this semi-final. I do have her probably winning in, I'll go 3 sets.
In terms of just matchups, like you mentioned, Aryna has been pulling out the drop shot. I haven't really seen Paula do that to great effect. So I just think that in her development as a player, she's just this much ahead of Paula. But I could definitely see Paula taking a set off of her.
Yeah, me too. And fingers crossed we get an exciting encounter. As I say, we've got on the other side of the women's draw a couple more quarterfinals to come before potentially getting we've never had a Sabalenka Swiatek Grand Slam final. We've had 2 epic finals in Madrid. I think they played a final in Stuttgart as well, and in Rome. But we've never had a Grand Slam final between these two. We still haven't had a Grand Slam final between Jannik Sinner and Carlos Alcaraz. And these 4 players have been in the headlines quite a bit now for the last 3 years, and winning Grand Slams and doing phenomenal things and pulling up trees and winning incredible matches. But we're not going to get Jannik Sinner against Carlos Alcaraz, that's for sure. Are we going to get Aryna Sabalenka against Iga Swiatek, do you think?
That would be a lot of fun, wouldn't it? And I did not have Iga. I didn't even have her in the final 4, only
Okay.
because of the the controversy swirling around her.
Yeah, I thought that might be a factor,
But
but
it's not. They're not going to pursue it any further. It's done
no.
and buried, and I don't think it was going to affect her anyway. Just seeing her perseverance. I watched a good bit of her in the United Cup, where golf, got the better of her.
Mhm.
But the one thing that I like about Swiatek is the fact that she works with the psychologist. So
Yeah.
when Coco gets tight in her matches, she's kind of letting herself get tripped up. Whereas Swiatek she has tools. She has specific proven tools to be able to work through those mental tight spots. So it's almost like a really big advantage for her.
Indeed. Well, we'll see if we do eventually get that final. But for now, we've addressed the first two semi-finals that we know about, which I guess will be one will be on Thursday on the women's side, and I'm guessing that we'll get Zverev Djokovic as the first men's semi-final on Friday. But they will have a 3-day break, which I'm sure Novak in particular will appreciate. But I just want to say a big thanks to you, Amy.
Thank you, John. Always fun to be with you.
I think it's a year since we spoke. I could be wrong.
Really?
I've had you on the show like 3 or 4 times. It tends to be once every 6 to 12 months. But I'm pretty sure we had a chat at a similar stage of the Aussie Open last year.
Oh, well, anytime you want, just hit me up on text.
Yep. It could. I have to think about the time zones and all the rest of it, and try and work it out. When we were watching Carlos against Novak earlier, I was thinking, well, if this goes 5, we're getting a little bit closer to that 4 o'clock or 10 a.m. as it would be for you moment for our meeting. But I'm sure you'd have been happy to hold off for another 10 or 15 minutes just to watch the conclusion of that match.
I was wondering what was going to happen
Yeah,
if
yeah.
Alcaraz was
You
going
would
to be
have got
able
a
to pull it out.
WhatsApp. You would have got a WhatsApp if Carlos had won that 4 set, but in the end, it wasn't necessary. But yeah, big thanks, Amy.
Sure, anytime. Thanks, John.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.